Okay, I've started recording, and so I'm going to wear a mask this entire episode. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. Welcome, viewers.
I thought there was some.
I forgot to bring my Guy Fawkes mask today, aka my anonymous mask. Shit.
Right.
I just outed myself.
Oh no!
Well, it looks like
you.
Not
this.
so anonymous anymore.
Yeah, we're the opposite of anonymous. We're
Named, not we are
we're
anonymous.
we're the public.
Anonymous.
We're Joe Public.
Yeah. I'm Joe the plumber.
Yeah.
Joe the plumber. Of all things to reference.
I miss Joe the plumber.
Yeah. What's happened?
What
to
about
Joe
him?
Yeah.
Does Joe the plumber like V for Vendetta? That's what I want.
I need to know. Can we call him?
He's unclogging the pipes.
Today you'll get this Joe's opinion because we're talking about Alan Moore's comic book adapted into. I don't even know who directed this movie. Shit, I should have.
I can tell you. Well, let's get into. Well, we're already diving head first because I got some.
Wrote and produced.
I got conspiracy theories because from what I've heard. Okay, so this is directed by a man named James McTeague.
Well, are we ready for the conspiracy theories? Some people don't even know what this movie is.
I'm
sure.
ready.
Well, set that up and then give you a little behind the scenes.
It's V for Vendetta.
Okay.
Have you seen this film? It came out in 2005.
Yes.
It is an adaptation of a comic book. It is a movie that is released by DC. And is it Warner Brothers? I know it's DC. It's DC and Vertigo.
I think it was Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's based off a comic book from the 80s written by Alan Moore, who wrote maybe, honestly might be the most famous comic book author of modern times. He wrote Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote From Hell. He wrote, God, I know I can think of another one that's not V for Vendetta.
I know. There's another one that's on the tip of my tongue.
Future Shocks, Swamp Thing he's famous for. Alan Moore wrote a whole bunch of crazy influential comics.
Yeah.
After, Watchmen came out and it was really popular. And I didn't like Watchmen, personally.
I didn't like Watchmen.
The movie?
The movie.
Yeah. I don't like the movie. Yeah. I have grown to appreciate the comic a lot because I honestly really liked the HBO show that they did, and then that made me kind of like retroactively go back and like, okay, this is good. But Alan Moore, this is actually a movie that he loved. Now, he didn't always say that, but he really loved. He hates every. I don't know if has he ever loved an adaptation of his stuff where he's gone like this rules?
I think.
But I agree with I think he's really interesting and
it's
a good argument.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying when he says that stuff.
Yeah, I think he wrote a story, and then when it's changed, like, well, no, I wrote the story.
Yeah.
He also says, like, I make comics, so read my comics. Like, I wrote this to be a comic. I didn't write it to be a movie. But then he gets mad that they changed the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about how they changed the movie from the comic, because I looked it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so V for Vendetta is the story of a fascist regime, a fascist government that has taken over the UK, America, and Russia have fallen. Remember, this takes place in the 80s, or was written in the 80s during the Cold War. And basically, it's like a 1984 type society. The government controls everybody, except there is one vigilante / terrorist / freedom fighter named V, who launches a campaign to take down the British government by, I guess he is inspired by a plot from 1605, where a man named Guy Fawkes tried to blow up the Parliament building in England. So, he's basically this terrorist who's going to single-handedly take down the government, and Natalie Portman is going to help him, and he's going to inspire revolution with his fedora and his wicked hacking skills.
But the question remains, who directed it, Rocco?
Yeah. So we've set the stage. Now here's for BTS controversies.
Directed by James McTeague. That's the credit. He was a second unit director on the Matrix trilogy with the Wachowskis. This was his first breakout, that he's actually doing his own movie. Yeah. I have heard rumors that the Wachowskis were that they wanted them to direct this basically, but there was controversy still after the Matrix trilogy. People were like, Wachowskis got dumped on bad after that, after the sequels.
Yeah.
They were received very weirdly. And so it was like, look, we got this awesome comic thing. How should we handle that? And so I've heard a lot of rumors that the Wachowskis were very involved in even the directing. Like, they were on set I've heard for like most of this movie. Like, okay, we're not technically the directors, but here's, like they were
some
kind
of
of
the scenes are definitely like, this is Matrix.
Yeah.
Like there are definitely scenes you can feel that.
So that's all. It's like the Spielberg Poltergeist thing. There was always that with this. Like, okay, did the Wachowskis really direct this?
They wrote the movie, they produced it.
Yeah.
I always thought they directed this
Me
movie.
too.
Honestly. I remember before this movie came out, I thought they were directing this movie, and I remember people talking about like, oh, you think bullet time is cool? Wait till you see what they got in V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
And we made jokes like, what are they gonna do? Knife time?
Yeah.
And then it was like
pretty much.
knife time. As far as I didn't see anything else in there.
Yeah.
What's funny about this movie is it's old. This movie's older now. But like I have vivid memories of us at Comic-Con getting those free Guy Fawkes masks because they were trying to promote the movie and giving those away. I remember us going to the theater to go see this movie. It's like,
I can't believe this movie came out 16 years ago.
I know.
That blows my mind.
I know.
I don't feel old. I feel like, did I go through a time warp? Like, how the fuck did that happen?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What blows my mind this kind of commentary is lost to time, as it were. Something I think about anytime I watch this movie is I remember being in the theater and Sean pointing out, he's like, the art direction or the set decoration is so good in this movie. And I was like, what do you mean? And I remember you said, you're like every single, like it's the future, but it's not like Blade Runner or whatever. But he's like, but every single TV is a flat widescreen TV. I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. At that time, that's still, we
that
weren't
was like
there
brand
yet.
new.
And it's funny, now you watch the movie, it doesn't even register to you because they're watching on a TV. Who cares? But at that time, it was like, wow, they like had every TV changed to and I remember at the time you pointed that out. You were like, wow, they made sure any TV you saw was a flat
It's
widescreen.
interesting that this movie came out in 2005, but it doesn't feel dated in the way that it looks. If I was in 2005 and I saw a 16-year-old movie, a movie from 1989, it would feel like an 80s movie.
Yeah, that's
it would
true.
feel like a movie from 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
This movie feels like they could have made this and released this year.
Yeah.
It kind of
That's what I was surprised by. Yeah.
It kind of feels like a superhero movie, kind of. In some
It is.
points,
It's a
I
comic
mean, it's a
book
comic.
movie.
You could tell,
Yeah.
but yeah, like it does. Yeah, you're
And
right.
I don't know if that's a testament to this movie or a diss against Hollywood, just that in 16 years, you haven't really left what they were doing in 2005. You could release a movie from 2005, it looks just as good.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very surprised by that. That was kind of one of the motivating factors in picking this movie is I was like, this is like just...
It doesn't have like hokey CG effects.
No.
It doesn't have, old looking tech.
yeah.
Yeah.
It still is a modern movie.
That's what I mean.
16 years
all the
old.
ingredients were holding up better than I thought. I was like, oh, I'm kind of impressed by this. So
Natalie Portman is still bald.
yeah.
That's fucking 2021. Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
She's still bald in all her movies.
Hugo Weaving, you can't say he looks young or old because he ain't showing you his face.
It's true.
You couldn't tell if you were a kid and you just saw this movie and you rented it, you wouldn't think like, oh, this was from
An
almost,
oldie.
almost 2 decades ago. You
Yeah.
wouldn't think that. You'd be like, okay, 2016, maybe
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah.
You know what? The thought of
2020.
us, if you would have told me like we saw movies together 16 years ago, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder what the first movie we saw together was. I'd be interested to know.
we did?
Yeah.
I remember going to see Attack of the Clones in 2002. I think we
Yeah.
saw
That's
it
true. We all
together.
saw it together. Yeah,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
I think it might have been Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think we all saw Spider-Man together.
Was it the first one?
Yeah, I think so.
With Tobey Maguire.
Yep.
When did that come out?
2001 or 2.
Jesus. Yeah.
I think that
I think
was
that
it.
could be right. Wow.
Yep.
20 years ago.
Dang.
Yeah.
Damn.
We'll have to
Anyways.
revisit that movie sometime.
Actually, that's a good idea. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, because I can't tell you.
Don't.
That's where I'm at. I'm like, people still really love these, but I don't know how well they age and whatever. Okay, that's an idea
bet
for
they suck.
next time.
Hard.
I've seen one of them recently, and I have strong thoughts.
I
on
think
it.
the third one ruined my opinion of all of them.
Yeah, the third one.
I just remember, not to go on too far with that, but I remember seeing that one at midnight when it came out.
Yeah.
And we were fresh off of X-Men 3, and we were like hurt by that movie. It was like, dude, X2 was so awesome. What did they do to us? And I remember leaving Spider-Man 3, and everyone was like, that's cool. That's kind of cool. And your friend from work, Sean, that you worked with at Chili's, came out like, I don't know. I think I was just as bad as X-Men 3. And everyone was like, don't say, what? It was like no one wanted to accept that yet.
Yeah.
It was like, I think it's over. Yeah.
And then it was.
It was over. So,
It's so funny because that burned me of superhero movies, and then right after that was when the Marvel explosion happened.
Yeah,
but I was already burnt. I was like, I'm not getting into
Isn't
this.
that funny? Because that's where it started for a lot of people. And I remember seeing Iron Man 1 and Derek, you walking out of it being like, I think I'm exiting here. Like this, I think I've seen enough. And how funny that was the beginning for.
To go from the year 1999 to when did Iron Man come out? 2008?
Yeah, I think
7 or 8.
7 or 8. One of those.
8.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane to me that at that point I had experienced 9 years of superhero movies and they had degraded to the point where I saw Iron Man and I thought, this is the fucking end. This is the bottom of the barrel.
And that was the beginning
and
for
that was
so
the
many.
fucking beginning.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it was argument after argument of Derek, you're crazy. These are good. And I'm like, guys, we're going over a decade and these are fucking bad.
I do think, I will say, they are still, I think superhero movie stuff is still not my thing now. Yeah. It doesn't hook me in an emotional way like a lot of things do. But I will say, I do think on the Marvel side, they did find their voice where they like, hey, we know how to do this and we do this well. Like, I'll give them that credit. That still might not be my thing, but at least they found like their own rhythm with that.
In DC, we already talked about that.
Yeah,
so
DC,
check that one out. You can see what we think about that.
I think it's a case of Stockholm syndrome. I think that they kept the audience hostage so much that they actually started to like their captors.
Some of it I do feel.
You know, these Thor movies are actually pretty cool.
Some of it I agree with you. But I think they found some ways to do things.
Let's talk about V for Vendetta.
Yeah, V for Vendetta. Okay, sorry, everyone. That's a tangent.
Get the plot of V for Vendetta. So Natalie Portman works at a propaganda news studio. This whole movie has a lot of overt symbols, and it's not very subtle. It's very on the nose.
Very on the nose.
The world is like in turmoil. There's like civil war in the United States. There's like viruses ravaging the world. It actually felt pretty relevant in 2020.
I thought the same thing where it hit differently.
Yo, it's hitting differently now.
Like the America's fucked up because of the virus, and it's like, oh man, like I don't know. It was like we went through it,
and there's like martial law, and it's very, very like controlling government.
Not to jump around too much, but that was the other reason I wanted to pick this. Is I was sitting there and they're going like, oh my god, this virus, and it killed almost, and I'm waiting for that number. Like, oh my god, what was the devastating number? And they're like, over 100,000 people died, and I'm like, we got that topped. And he goes into, again, not trying to jump ahead too far, but he's saying like, did the government know about this? And if they did, would you want to know? And I'm like, oh man, okay.
Yeah, dude.
All right, well,
and I'm gonna point out too that it's a conservative government in power in this movie, because the whole time they're like, things would be better if we went back to a time where we had wholesome families, not sexual deviancy, not people mocking religion and this and that. And this government, I think they're homophobic.
They definitely are.
Well, they definitely are. They outlaw homosexuality. In the comic book, so one of the things that Alan Moore was upset about is he actually feels like they tamed this movie down. He flat out made them like more racist, more of like a fascist Nazi-esque regime in the comic book. And the origin of this government group was a little different in the comic book as well. But I'll talk about that a little later. But essentially, those are the people who are running the show here. And at the beginning of the movie, on November 4th, a vigilante, Guy Fawkes, rescues Natalie Portman. She's out after curfew, and these cops find her.
These fingermen.
That's what they're called, But they're basically gonna like
rape her,
sexually abuse her. And then V rescues her, kills these guys, and takes her to view this bombing that he's going to do at the stroke of midnight. He blows up this statue, this Lady Justice statue, on top of some government building.
Yeah, the Old Bailey. I don't know what that is.
That's the beginning. That's the opening act of this film.
Yeah.
As this movie goes on, I kind of feel like it feels like a comic book. I got into comic books recently, like really into them, and I could see the comic book structure in this movie, and everything leading up to this blowing up of the statue felt like issue 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then after that, V takes Natalie Portman. He finds out her name is Evie. He takes her to his home, which is like a secret base, and he tells her, like, you're going to live with me for a whole year here, and you're going to become my protege, and we're going to take down this evil government. And this almost felt like issue number 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you guys want to chime in? Because I'm glossing over some a lot of like action sequences here.
The first part is, you know, it's just setting it up. It's all set up, which is fine. And then the second part, when they go, I just liked how he's always like 1,000 steps ahead of these people.
Yeah.
You know, to the point where like he goes into the news studio and plays his own video, and then like he dresses everyone up like him so like he can escape, and like this stuff like that. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, I don't know if it's in the comic. I've never read the comic, but it was cool, you know. And whatever.
This is I missed a part. He blows up the statue, and then he like invades a news studio and takes it over and tells the world, like, in 1 year I'm going to destroy Parliament. Like, you should rise up and revolt against this government, and I'll be back in a year. And then he has to fight his way out, but the government like basically fakes his death. They basically release his propaganda that says like, yeah, we killed that terrorist, and so don't worry about him.
Right. But they didn't kill him, guys.
But they didn't kill him. Yeah. What do you want to say about this, Rocco?
All I wanted to say was the main thing here is I love Hugo Weaving's performance. Hugo Weaving has always been one of my favorite actors, just because Agent Smith is one of my favorite characters, like, in fiction. I love that character so much. I think Hugo Weaving is so underrated. You know, I've always really liked performing through a mask. There's always been something about that, you know, even growing up watching Power Rangers, you know, they're always like talking with their helmets on, and they have to act through that. And for some reason, that's always been like funny to me. And him doing that in this and giving a good performance through that, I really like. And what's funny is, I guess for about 4 weeks, it was a different guy. Like, they had a different guy in that suit acting the whole thing, and it didn't work out.
James Purefoy, I read.
Yeah.
But apparently he's in some shows. I've never seen any of them, but I don't know.
I wasn't super familiar. But, you know, so it's not all entirely Hugo, but.
Which is interesting. I would love to know which wasn't.
Yeah.
Not that it really matters, I guess. But I'm curious.
But to me, that just like lights up this whole movie. I really love his performance. I just think he's like such a kick. So anyway, that's all. I mean, that's not really pertaining to the plot, but
I feel like this movie is very, like, you could see Alan Moore's fingerprints on it. Like, the dialogue is great, but it feels like a comic book character.
Yeah, it's
These
corny.
Over the top characters.
Yeah.
The visualization of the letter V
Right.
painted on everything. Even there's a moment where he gets wounded and falls against a wall and kind of smears.
Right.
And his blood smears the letter V.
Yeah.
The clock on the background is like F at the time, but it's like it
I
makes a
could
V.
see the comic book pages on the screen. I
Right.
just felt like you guys didn't storyboard this. You had the comic book in your lap, and you're like, okay, no, move the red letter over a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, nailed it.
Yeah.
Which is not a complaint. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I think
And they did it in a way that it was engaging too, and not just, I know with some Zack Snyder movies, he goes so far with it that it's like, yo, get back to the point. You know, like, let's arrange all these things so it makes this shot or whatever. This movie doesn't do that. It's just all there in the DNA.
Zack Snyder will freeze the image practically
Yeah,
in
yeah.
slow motion and be like, yeah, I get it.
He'll show
Splash page.
it to you for 20 minutes.
But this was more like interpreting the comic as storyboards that they kind of worked in. If you look closely, there were a lot of little details in this movie that I appreciated. You know that big face on the screen? The fascist leader?
Yeah.
Did you notice that his pupils were dilated the whole film?
Yeah.
I was like halfway through the movie where I was like, this guy looks like he's on drugs.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, he doesn't blink. I guess he blinks in the movie one time.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
They
that.
said that there's only one time where you see him blink.
Little details like that I really liked. Basically, at this point in the movie, Natalie Portman is... Oh, were you going to add something to it?
No.
Natalie Portman has gone to live with V. I really enjoyed the movie up until this point. And I remember when I watched this when I was 20 years old, feeling the same way. I felt like this is where the movie kind of slowed down. And me personally, I don't know if it ever kind of recovers that excitement of the opening acts of it.
Oh, okay.
Because I personally just feel like I wasn't quite sure where this movie was going. She spends a lot of time with V, and they start assassinating members of the government who had wronged him in the past.
Yeah.
And she convinces him to let me help you do an assassination. And they go after this corrupt priest.
Yeah.
Who tries to, this is the theme of the movie, rape her. To the credit, by the way, I should pause. I don't think that's something the movie embellished. I think the original comic had a lot of sexual undertones to show that characters were unstable and had impure motivations.
I see.
Even the politician, Norfolk, the leader, he in the comic book is in love with his computer and is weirdly sexual with it. And even V, the main character, is weirdly sexual towards that Lady Justice statue he blows up. So that's a theme throughout the comic.
Huh, okay.
And another thing from the comic is that the characters aren't so cut and dry good and bad.
Yeah.
V is definitely way more clinically insane in the comic. In this one, they're are you crazy? He's I'm sure people will say that about me. Right?
Yeah,
I think when you read the comic, it's no, this dude is crazy. For real. Everybody's a little crazy, I think. It's not so cut and dry who is in the right.
Yeah.
Something that I didn't pick up on. I've seen this movie. I think I've seen this movie more than any other movie that we've done Movie Club besides Princess Bride.
This is my second time seeing it.
Princess Bride I've seen a billion times. This I used to watch almost every year. I really was into it for a while.
Yeah, I've seen it a handful of times.
But she goes to him and says I wish I could be like you, but I'm not. I wish I could do the things that you do and feel the way you feel, but I can't. And then that comes back later. I didn't realize. I never put that together. It's when he's we'll get into it later, but what he does to her. Yeah. It's he's making. She wished for it, and so he's doing it to her.
I never thought about that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
She tries to help him do this assassination on a priest, but then she ends up betraying him, and she wants to escape. And she does escape, and she goes and lives with her former boss, who is a television host. To that effect, I noticed something interesting. When she was living with V in his house, she sees all this collected art he has. And she's oh my God, all of this stuff is illegal. And he's if they ever find me here, this stuff will be the least of my concerns. And then when she flees V and goes to live with her former boss, she's oh my God, thank you for taking me in. And he goes, if they ever find this place, you're going to be the least of my concerns. And he clicks a button and it opens up a room full of art.
Right.
And it's really interesting to me to see how these two guys who were dissidents of the government essentially said the same thing.
Yeah. They actually, do you know that when they first meet her for the first time, they say the same thing to her?
Yeah.
They say, bonjour, mademoiselle. They both say that to her when she they first open the door for her.
Yeah, so she goes to live with Gordon, and it definitely starts playing this angle, which I think is interesting, is this guy the vigilante known as V, which is funny because there's no way he could be.
Right.
Because he's more overweight and just very public. How would he be able to hide his identity? But they do arouse that suspicion, despite the fact that there's no way he could be V.
Yeah.
And it's only hitting me now that is kind of the point of this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody could be V.
Right.
Yeah. That spirit's in all of us, kind of. Yeah.
Exactly. And this movie, I should take a pause to address that. I think the movie handles some really deep issues. I have mixed feelings about this movie 15 years later. I think that they're talking about inspiring terrorism and revolt and going against your government, which some people think is scary and are dangerous ideas. But at the same time, I think that this movie can be very formative to teenagers and stuff if you see it at the right time. I think that this movie, if you catch it at the right time, can be very deep. And if you catch it at the wrong time, can be extremely hokey.
Yeah.
Because it also went on to inspire the anonymous movement.
Right. Or at least the look of it.
The look of it, exactly. And those guys maybe took the look and bastardized the message of this movie by turning it into their own thing, which, whatever you feel about that, sometimes I know people look at V for Vendetta and they cringe just because of all the real world influence it had on internet culture.
Yeah.
And so I think, this is one of those strange movies where it's like, I think sometimes I criticize a movie and I say, that's for like 15-year-olds. When we talk about other superhero movies, I think this one's a compliment when I be like, watch this when you're 15 or 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Like, this is a good message in the medicine if you're really into like comics and superheroes and stuff.
Yeah. I also think too, given what it covers, I think it was still pretty bold for them to release this movie only a few years after 9/11 had happened. Like it literally talks about like sometimes blowing up a building is like the message, like that, it's a symbol, but I just going into that was like, we're doing this now. All right. To confront that and what that means. I don't know. I thought at the time was interesting.
I think the movie's still relevant today, honestly, with Black Lives Matter movement. Because as things go on, V starts sending his mask out to everybody in the public. And essentially they outlaw wearing that mask. People wear that mask as a sign of protest. And what happens is they commit crimes while wearing that mask.
Yeah.
And so the police say everybody wearing that mask is a criminal.
Yeah.
And they end up shooting a child.
Right.
An innocent person. Which then causes protests in the street.
Yeah.
Which then is met with militant force. And I'm watching this being like, this is what's happening in America in 2020. It's crazy. I mean, we're talking about like there's a global pandemic.
Right.
There's protests against social injustice in the street.
Yeah.
The movie was relevant to 9/11, but it's relevant to 2020 as well.
Yeah.
In a strange way. I mean, I think that's a point in favor of this movie being. I think this movie's so interesting. I think this movie is a little bit underrated. Despite the fact that everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that people had just consumed it and then it got integrated into its place in society quickly and then everybody moved on.
Yeah.
It was like, yep, V for Vendetta, really interesting story about don't trust the government. With that mask, we could actually kind of do that in real life.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Anyways, let's never talk about this movie ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was kind of like the cultural response, in my opinion. So, geez, where are we in the movie?
She was at her friend Gordon's house. I believe his name is Gordon. And then, it's interesting. She talks about seeing her parents. You see a flashback of her parents being black bagged, which means the government takes you never see him again.
Yeah.
And then it's the same exact thing that happens to her with Gordon. And it's like, dude, black bag on his face and she's under the bed. And it's just like, oh, dude, that sucks.
Yeah, Gordon makes a broadcast on his show that criticizes the leader of his government, so he's abducted by his government.
Which I was going to say, the thing I never liked and I still don't like is that they got, I believe, the same actor to be the parody version of himself.
Yeah,
and
that always
me,
sat weird
like,
with me.
Get someone who looks like him. Like, I don't know. Like, I never liked that.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Sean. That was always like, what is this? Oh, it's actually him? No, it's not. Oh, it's a parody.
You know what?
Well, get it? Yeah.
It's so interesting because when you're reminding me that I used to feel that way when I saw this in theaters, but watching it now, I never even questioned that. I just thought like, oh yeah, deep fake. Like,
maybe it's in a new context.
I mean, it's just later on. I'm assuming you've seen this movie, so we'll get to this later. But like when you see him like later on in the movie, like and the bag's removed from his head, it's like, well, is that the actor? Is that the fake guy? Is that the I don't know. Like you don't fuck around with his look. Like have it be the guy.
Yeah.
I've been praising a lot about this movie, but I do have some serious criticisms with the story. It is a little convoluted. And there are parts of it that I personally find boring and like heavy-handed with the message. As a adult and a fully formed person, there are parts of this movie where I groan. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I read 1984. I get it. Don't trust the government. Everything they say might not be true. And there are parts that are confusing. Like that whole, when they unbag that guy, I'm kind of like, so what's the deal here? Like, how did this arrangement all come about?
Right.
But basically, Natalie Portman's friend is abducted and she is abducted as well. And she is tortured by the government and they want information regarding V. she's kept in a cell for like 6 months. And while she's in there, her cellmate slips her these notes that tell her the life story of the cellmate, how she was a lesbian who was like outlawed by the government because, you know, being gay is illegal. And her partner was killed, and basically tells her whole life story to Natalie Portman. And this inspires her like, oh my God, this government does suck.
Yeah.
Wow, this government is oppressive.
And like,
I don't want to help out.
She was sent off to some like medical facility and tested on, and it was all fucked up.
You got kind of the backstory of where V came from. Yeah, he's a product of government experimentation.
And I was gonna say too, this was, you mentioned, Derek, like this movie, you may be losing its steam and not getting it back or whatever. I think I agree for the part you were talking about where they're like, you know, they go for that priest and they go for whatever. That part I'm kind of whatever, but this part, the part where she's reading the story of the other person in the cell, I always really liked.
Yeah.
And it's funny, just in behind the scenes, that was when they put the whole thing together. That was the one thing the studio said, oh yeah, just cut that part and then you're good. I think the rest of this is great. And they were like, this is kind of
the torture part?
No, the story of the gay woman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, just cut that whole scene and then you're good.
Yeah, that's what the Wachowskis are going to do.
Yeah, and that's what they were saying. They were like, yeah, it's kind of like the heart of the movie. Like, so no. And then that was it. That was like the one fight. Like they had like pretty much blank check. And then that was the one fight. But anyway, but I always like that part. I
do like that
the
part.
emotional core of it.
What is the vendetta? Mm-hmm. It's that this government makes love illegal. So how are you going to live in a society where you can't be yourself and be free and be free to love who you want?
And I think it kind of shows an innocence to it, that it's like, you know, we get so caught up in like all the technical things and the labels and the whatever. And it's like just showing the simple thing.
Not only did they kill that woman's partner, but at the same time tortured her and tortured V and turned him into this like super soldier. So that's the vendetta.
Yeah.
Like these guys fucking suck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if you cut that, then like change the name. Because that's the name of the movie, V for Vendetta. What's the vendetta? That's it.
Yeah. Now it's just V.
Yeah. So Natalie Portman basically gets this story while in jail and decides, I'm not going to help the government. No matter what they do, you can kill me. And at that point, she's released and finds out it was V the whole time.
V, how could you?
I was training you to be just like me.
Like you wished.
Yeah.
You wanted to be this and you wished for it. So this is what it takes.
Yeah, and he basically tells her there's a few more days until November 5th. We're going to blow up Parliament. And then we wrap up the movie. This is the end of the movie. He makes a deal with the corrupt guys in the government, like, kill your leader and I'll turn myself in. And they do it, and they kill the leader. And then a big fight turns out. And like we talked about earlier, we get to see knife time. He defeats them using knife time.
Yeah.
But he's mortally wounded. And so he meets Natalie Portman in this underground subway and basically has this bomb that's going to go blow up Parliament. He says, I can't flip this switch. This is your choice because I'm dead and you're going to live. So the future belongs to you.
Right.
And then she flips the switch.
We haven't really covered, and whatever. I think Grady is his name. No. What's the good detective? What's I forget.
Mr. Creedy.
Creedy.
Was that his name?
No, I thought
no, that was a bad guy. That was a bad guy. Yeah.
There's a couple things that
his name is. I think. Shit, I have it here. I don't know.
Well, let's say it's Grady, but I don't know. I loved his character. I thought he was great. I loved him finding all the people who were involved in this torturing of V and finding them dead, no matter how prominent they were, and the rose and all that stuff. Like, I enjoyed that.
Finch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I enjoyed that whole part.
I just felt like I said there were acts of this movie and movements of this movie that felt like they were self-contained issues of a comic.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman living with V. Natalie Portman living with Gordon. Natalie Portman being interrogated. Mm-hmm. The revolution that V starts. And I felt like this would be better as a TV show.
Sure.
Because as a movie, like some of these could be taken out completely. Other parts can be shortened.
I think they're making a TV show of this.
Yeah, I think it would work better that way because I feel like it was just a little too clunky. Each individual part had a moment that felt slow, all in its own self-contained episode. So after time and again, be like, this was good, had a slow part. Oh, now something new's happening. This is getting slow now. I just felt like the movie didn't like roll along as smoothly as it could have. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion of it. Yeah, there was a character in there, this good detective. I had another big problem with the movie that you generally don't know what anybody's trying to accomplish specifically in this movie. They have these ambiguous philosophical goals. We want to overthrow the government. We want to start a revolution. But like, how?
Right.
Yeah.
Come, wait a year because on November 5th, you're going to see. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
This whole movie is like waiting for a year to pass.
Yeah.
So there's cool parts. There's some drawbacks to it.
Yeah.
That's essentially, at the end of the movie, he does inspire a revolution. He blows up Parliament, and all the people of England are pretty much happy about it. And
Yeah, because it all sucked.
yeah, you found out that the virus was orchestrated by the government, and it was a big trick that was put on the people.
Right.
That was something that Alan Moore didn't like about this movie, because in his version, there was no trick. The people legitimately elected that government.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that all of the characters were more well-rounded. So the bad guys in the movie had families in the comic, and you kind of see that they're just more like normal people,
Right.
and that they're civil servants. They're just politicians that were elected by a population of people who were very similar to them. And then V is legitimately crazy anarchist. It's not so black and white, cut and dry.
Yeah.
I guess. If you're into that thing, check it out.
Yeah.
If you like this movie and if you like this comic, there are a couple of comics running right now, contemporary comics that are very similar that I would recommend to people out there. One is called Little Bird, which is basically about that conservative government taking over and how you fight back against that. And then another one is called Safe Sex, which is about a government that outlaws anything other than like missionary sex, basically. Yeah. But
Finally.
it's a pretty interesting comic.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you guys want to say?
I will say that this movie. Are we doing shakers now? Is this
Well,
time?
we'll wrap it up and do some shakers. Yeah.
Yeah. Rocco, do you want to go first for the shakers, or should it's your
Well,
pick?
we can
go
just
for it,
talk
go for it.
about
Oh.
anything else you want to say about
Well,
this.
yeah, I will. Well, real quick, the guy who I thought was, the guy who was walking through the fire. I wonder, like, how did they do that? Like, how did they?
Yeah.
They just lathered that dude up in fire paste and put him in a G-string and had him walk on through, which I thought was
Yeah.
interesting.
That guy Chad, I don't know how to say his last name, but that guy is like John, like he was Keanu's stunt double on The Matrix and he's doing all the John Wick movies. Great stunt guy, but yeah, they lowered his body temperature all day long. Like they just kept him in cold just to chill him to his bones and cool down all the gel that was on him and all that stuff. And then at the end of the night, let him out.
What a nightmare.
And just like, you'll be on fire for a while and see how long you could do it.
I also want to say the domino scene involved 22,000 dominoes, and it took 4 professional dominoists 200 hours to complete.
That sucks.
Yeah. Should have just
Because
done CG.
I thought it was CG, and I also thought it was lame.
There you go.
Thought it was stupid and fake.
Yeah.
But I did think it was cool when they did that at the Oscars, but it was VHS tapes that spelled Oscar. Didn't they do that one year?
I don't remember.
I might have made that up. But anyway, yeah, I really like this movie. I don't know. Yeah, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. I kind of thought when I popped it in, I was like, this is going to be a relic of the early 2000s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of the movies reek of that. I was surprised how much this didn't reek of that, to be honest. It's not perfect. But I was surprised that it was still like, there's stuff that's like still contemporary here. And for me, it's half that, but it's also half like, again, I just love Hugo Weaving and like his performance. I get a huge kick out of.
Sure.
I really love, it is corny, but I don't know. There's very few movies of this type that just let someone run with a corny masked performance like that,
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking at it from a little more of a childish side, I guess. But yeah, I really like it. I think a lot of it holds up pretty good.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'll just say, I guess I give it 4 shakers. I'm going to give it 4. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. This movie, when I first saw it, it would have been a 5 for me. I loved it at first.
Yeah.
But that's when you were talking to Derek, when you were younger and
Yeah.
it was meant for you at that time. And now I'm a little older and looking at it a little differently. And it's so good. Not as good as what I used to think. So I say 3.5 for me.
Cool. And I give it a 3, honestly, just because I feel like pacing issues. If you're
Sure.
not in love with the theme of this movie, if you just showed up for a cool action movie,
Yeah.
you might be a little bored.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that was how I felt in 2005.
I know
when
a lot of
saw
people
it.
that I feel like they said that. They
I
were
went
like,
in thinking this was going to be cool action movie like The Matrix, and it was more ideological than it was kick-ass.
Yeah.
I can appreciate the ideological, but that's not what I was like expecting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you have to consider at that time, the early 2000s were a weird time because in the world of video games, we were on the cusp of realistic graphics.
Right.
So everyone wanted that in every game. You know what I mean? It was like, why is Zelda looking like a cartoon? Give us realistic stuff. Because we were so close. We were so close. And I feel like in movies, we were finally getting, whoa, superhero movies where they actually can do it. You know, or Lord of the Rings. Wow, they can actually pull off these worlds and they could do. So I feel like there was a real thirst for action and stuff that would make us like amazed, you know? And so, you know, like The Matrix or like, you know, how are they going to do Spider-Man? Oh, they did it, you know? So I think when we start hearing about V for Vendetta, it's like, what cool gimmicks is he going to pull off? And you're in that mindset. And yeah, when it came out, I know a lot of people that were like, it wasn't that great, you know, thought there'd be more knife time, you know, whatever, but it wasn't that kind of movie. And with some retrospect, you can see that now.
So did I say? I gave it 3.
You did.
Yeah.
3 shakers. Okay.
All right. What's next, Derek?
We're going to do a change of pace. I'm going to introduce everybody out there to the world of Hong Kong cinema. We're going to watch a Jackie Chan movie.
Cool.
Now, there's some debate out there. What is the best Jackie Chan movie? Some people say
Tuxedo.
it's Police Story
Oh, okay.
1. Some people say it's Police Story 3.
Didn't even know there were 3.
Apparently, there's like 5.
Oh,
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
I've never seen any of them, so I'm going to go back to basics. We're going to watch Police Story,
Okay.
starring Jackie Chan,
Hell yeah.
and
Never seen
directed by Jackie Chan.
Oh.
Damn.
So we're going to see what this Jackie Chan guy is all about.
We're going to let you know the definitive story. Is he up to snuff or not? What did he deserve the stardom, the fame? We will tell you.
I'll let you know next week.
Yeah.
And I
we
can't
might we might even try out one of his stunts and see if it's that hard.
Yeah, probably not.
So
But thank you for watching.
Yeah, watch Police Story, not Toy Story.
It'll be a different
Police
movie.
Story.
and not a Christmas story.
Police Story.
Goodbye.
Good night.